asked. 31 million ballots were requested by people across the country, right? 31 million have been requested, but 74 million ballots have actually been sent out by the various states. So the big question is, now we've already got 60 million cast. That includes walk-in to same-day voting places and things like that. How many of those other votes are that are just sent by the state will actually wind up being counted?
The majority of the people who have voted already are Democrats. There are increasingly getting more and more Republicans out there voting already, early voting. But they say most GOP voters are expected to vote on Election Day. But people are worried about corona. They don't want to stand in the long lines. They want to socially distance. So a lot of people are also mailing in their ballots as well. But it all comes down, really, Brian, to these issues. You have to look at each candidate, look at their issues, and which one is better off for your family and your needs.
Yeah, that'll be interesting if we could find out exactly what Joe Biden's going to do on those issues, which is interesting. He challenged President Trump to play the tape showing about fracking. So Mr. President Trump has been playing the tape at all his live shows about fracking. Meanwhile, Griff Jenkins is live in Washington from the latest from President Trump and Joe Biden's campaigns. Griff.
Good morning, Brian Ainsley and Steve. You talk about the issues. Every 4 years, the candidates sit down with 60 minutes to hit those issues. This year was no different. You had all the candidates, Trump, Pence, Biden, and Harris doing so, although it took a turn when President Trump cut the interview short, got up, walked out, because he felt he wasn't being given a fair shake for moments like this.
All these people jammed in together, and I'm seeing most of them without masks. And I'm wondering the message that you're sending with these pictures coming across television.
Take a look. Yesterday,
Tell me about the mask wearing.
You're so negative. These are the biggest rallies we've ever had. You just come in here with that negative attitude.
Now, in Biden's interview, we got an admission, perhaps, the former VP saying he's not taking this election for granted. Watch.
You have held a steady lead in the national and state polls. But so did Hillary Clinton 4 years ago. Could Donald Trump still win this?
Sure. I'm one of those folks or competitors. It's not over till the bell rings. And I feel superstitious when I predict anything other than it's going to be a hard fight. We feel good about where we are, but, you know, I don't underestimate how he plays.
Now, one candidate was on the trail yesterday, President Trump holding a rally in New Hampshire, while the other candidates not on the trail, but virtually appearing in a concert, both Jill and Joe Biden doing so. Today, the president heads to Pennsylvania, making 3 stops. 2 of those will be rallies. Joe Biden has no events listed today, but he will head to Georgia tomorrow. Brian Ainsley, Steve.
All right, Griff, thank you very much. Let's bring in Republican Senator from the great state of Arkansas, Tom Cotton. He's a member of the Senate Intel Committee. Senator, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good to be on with all of you.
It's great to have you as well. During the 60 Minutes interview, both the questioners asked the candidates the most impactful foreign nation. The president said China. Joe Biden said Russia. What did you make of those 2 answers?
You know, Steve, I remember back in the 2012 debates when Mitt Romney gave the same answer that Russia was our main adversary, and he got laughed off the stage by Barack Obama and the Democrats. Barack Obama even said that the 1980s called and they wanted their foreign policy back. I guess the 1980s are calling now and asking for their candidate back. Although with Joe Biden's case, it might be the 1970s that are calling and asking for their candidate back. Look, Joe Biden is wrong. Russia is a threat. We have to be mindful about Russia. President Trump has taken action to increase NATO defense spending, to withdraw from obsolete treaties with Russia that put us at a disadvantage, to shut down their consulates and send back their spies to Russia. But there's no question that China is the #1 threat the United States faces. They've stolen our jobs and our factories for decades. They continue to steal our property. They have spies at our universities and all around the country. And of course, their military buildup is specifically designed to threaten our interest and our allies in the Western Pacific. Joe Biden and the Democrats only discovered their inner Cold Warrior because they wanted to blame Hillary Clinton's loss on Russia, not on Hillary Clinton in their own campaign.
Well, now Democrats are blaming Russia for the Hunter Biden email scandal. They're saying that it's Russian disinformation. They're trying to use Rudy Giuliani to spread information to hurt Joe Biden. This is what Joe Biden said about his son's email leak.
Do you believe the recent leak of material allegedly from Hunter's computer is part of a Russian disinformation campaign.
From what I've read and know, the intelligence community warned the president that Giuliani was being fed disinformation from the Russians. And we also know that Putin is trying very hard to spread disinformation about Joe Biden. And so when you put the combination of Russia, Giuliani, the president together, it's just what it is. It's a smear campaign because he has nothing he wants to talk about. What is he running on? What is he running on?
Senator, what do you believe is the truth here, and what evidence do you have?
Yeah, what a joke, Ainsley. Russian disinformation. That couldn't be more false. Both words are false. They have no evidence whatsoever to suggest that these emails or documents came from Russia. Look, the simplest explanation for these things is usually the correct explanation. Those emails came from Hunter Biden's laptop that he took to a computer shop in Delaware, and he left there. And then second, disinformation or misinformation, that implies there is false information. As far as we know, Joe Biden has not denied any of this. He had a chance last night in 60 Minutes. He still didn't deny it. Hunter Biden certainly hasn't denied it. For all you Sherlock Holmes fans out there, those are the dogs that didn't bark. If this was false, if Hunter Biden was not trading on his family's name in his father's office, they would simply say, this is false, this is not authentic, this is fake. But we all know that Hunter Biden, like much of the rest of the Biden family, has been trading on the Biden family name and Joe Biden's public office for decades.
But they don't even throw out the question. He didn't even punt on the question. He hasn't gotten the question, and this stuff's been out a week already. And, you know, do you know Tony Bobulinski might be something else to follow up on? A yes or no would tell a lot. But let's fast forward to what's going to be happening today with Amy Coney Barrett. If she gets confirmed, like even Lisa Murkowski is going to vote for her, which seems to be a given, it looks like Joe Biden's going to put together a commission about changing the Supreme Court. What do you think that commission is going to show?
Well, Brian, first off, it's not if, it's when. Judge Barrett will be confirmed tonight a little bit after 7 o'clock Eastern Time. Look, the American people got a good look at Judge Barrett a couple of weeks ago at their confirmation hearings. They love what they saw, and now a clear majority supports her confirmation. That's because she is a brilliant jurist. She conducted herself with grace and poise and dignity under some demanding circumstances, and she applies and interprets the law as it's written, not as she wishes it might have been written. So Judge Barrett is going to be confirmed this evening. Now, Joe Biden and the Democrats are threatening to do things like pack the courts because they don't view the courts as an independent arbiter of the rule of law. They just view it as another super legislature to achieve their desired outcome, some of which you saw last week during the debate, like Joe Biden promising a no-strings-attached amnesty in the first 100 days of his administration if he wins, or promising to end the fossil fuel industry. Those are the kind of objectives that they have, and they don't want something as nettlesome as the Supreme Court and the rule of law standing in their way.
But, Senator, you know, Joe Biden has been asked a number of times over the last couple of weeks, do you want to pack the court? And finally, he gave the answer, which was, I'm not going to give you an answer. If I'm elected, I'm going to put together a commission, and I'm going to give them 180 days, which kind of sounds like what a number of people have said over the last couple of days. Joe Biden is at the stage, given what he said regarding fracking and fossil fuels, he will say anything to get elected.
Yeah, and Steve, that's what Joe Biden has done throughout his career. He's really been a weather vane for wherever the center mass of the Democratic Party is at a certain time. That's one reason why he was so weak on defense throughout the 70s and the 80s, or why he stood up for giant credit card companies in his home state of Delaware 20 years ago. And that's why he's moved so far to the left today. Things like an immediate amnesty with no promises of enforcement in return, or ending the fossil fuel industry, or imposing a government health care plan on the American people, something that not even Barack Obama and 60 Democratic senators thought to do 10 years ago. But that's where the left wing of the Democratic Party has moved, and Joe Biden has moved with them.
Senator Cotton, thank you for joining us.
Thank you all.
For the Falcons. They're like, please let him score.
There were a couple crazy endings.
Yep. All right. Thanks, Jillian. Meanwhile, Kanye West criticizing liberals who say he will split the black vote in the presidential election. Black Voices for Trump board member Paris Denard says it's part of a pattern by the left. He'll join us next.
That makes it seem like black people can't make decisions
for ourselves, and that don't know white people know me. Like I'm only
Right.
the liberal. They literally make it seem like only black people will vote for me.
Right.
Think about that statement.
Kanye West slamming the notion that black voters have to vote Democrat. He joins a growing list of rappers speaking out ahead of November 3rd. So should Democrats be concerned about this? Black Voices for Trump Advisory Board member Paris Denard weighs in. Paris, that statement must have resonated with you.
Well, certainly. Listen, I think what we see here is a pattern with Democrats that are trying to tell black America how to vote. First, it was Joe Biden saying, if you don't vote for him, you ain't black, and then telling us that we're not diverse and that we're a monolith. Then you had Chelsea Handler talking to ICE, talking to 50 Cent, trying to say that she had to tell him, to remind him that he was black, to try to tell him how to vote. Or MSNBC saying that the black people that came on the Republican National Convention were part of a black minstrel show. It's absurd, it's bigoted, and it's black voter suppression, because they know that there's millions of independent, free-thinking black Americans who are not subscribing to what Joe Biden and the Democrat Party are saying, and they love what President Trump has done, is doing, and will do through his Platinum Plan.
So you look, 50 Cent made headlines last week when he said, I looked at Joe Biden's plan, I'm going to be losing 60% of my money. So you make $10, you give it away $6. As a guy that rose from prison to a few times becoming a multimillionaire, he knows the value of the dollar and how hard he worked to get it. And Ice Cube also weighed in, but he wasn't talking about his wealth. He was talking about others in the African-American community. And he came up with a plan. He called both camps. And one said, if I'm elected, I'll call you back. And one said, I got the job, why don't you come in? And he spent some time with Jared Kushner, and the president seems to have embraced his plan. It's Ice Cube. Listen to what he said to Chris Wallace yesterday.
They listened, heard what I had to say, and pumped up their plan and presented it to the people. I told everybody that, you know, I'm not playing politics with this. No matter who's the president, I'm going to get up and go to work in the morning.
So he took so much backlash and then took it on, typical with his, which he's known to be. So what is the Platinum Plan, and what do you think the administration saw in it?
I think that what we saw with Ice Cube and Jared Kushner and the Trump administration is what the Trump administration has been doing and what Donald Trump has been doing his entire life, which is reaching out, engaging with people and saying, if you have a good idea to improve the lives of anyone, to make America great again for black America, white America, Hispanic America, to make this country great, we'll listen to you. We want to do it. Ice Cube had his contract with Black America. He reached out to both campaigns. Biden said, yeah, we'll talk about it after the election. The Trump administration said, let's listen. They listened for 3 hours and incorporated some of his ideas into the Platinum Plan, which is a holistic plan specifically targeting the black agenda, the black community for the next 4 years. It talks about access to capital to the tune of $500 billion, 3 million new jobs, 500,000 new black-owned businesses, making Juneteenth a federal holiday, KKK and Antifa listed as a terrorist organization. It's a holistic plan looking at health, looking at the economy, looking at jobs, looking at safety and security. It's a positive thing that President Trump has done, and I'm proud about it.
Right, and you think the black vote, you could get as much as 13% this time of the black vote, which is just terrible, but it's better than the 8% you had last time, right?
Senator Tim Scott has said 12 to 13% and it's game over, and I believe that's to be true, because when you look at the president's record, that record of accomplishments that he's done for the black community in the past, he kept his promises, and now he has the Platinum Plan for the future. We've seen polls that show upward support of 46%, Trafalgar and others. This is an election where black Americans are going to win because they have a winner in President Trump.
And very interesting. You know who kind of agreed with you? Van Jones, of famously President Obama's good friend on CNN,
That's right.
Came out and said he's done some good things for the black community, and total silence at CNN. Thanks so much. I appreciate it, Paris. Great to see you.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Meanwhile, straight ahead, Joe Biden grilled about his views on oil in Pennsylvania with just 8 days left until the election. Newt Gingrich says Biden's comments may have guaranteed.
Since her nomination a month ago, Democrats have been resisting adding Judge Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court. Remember this?
I will not participate in degrading our democracy or our judiciary.
I will not be meeting with her. The expectation is, of course, that she is going to strike down the Affordable Care Act.
This is Mary Naden Scott. When I think of what the Affordable Care Act means to millions of Americans, what's on the line with this nomination? I think of Mary.
We are boycotting this illegitimate hearing.
Well, despite their best efforts to block and delay, the vote will go on tonight at 7:30 Eastern Time, and our next guest is calling it an imminent victory for the court and the country. Here with more, President of the Judicial Crisis Network, Carrie Severino. Carrie, good morning to you.
Good morning, Steve.
Victory for whom?
You know, I think it's a victory for all Americans because Judge Barrett is so committed to following the law as it's written. That's something that's not just a conservative goal. She's not going to be there to be a conservative activist on the court. She is there to interpret the law as it's written. That means everyone can rest assured that whatever laws are passed by their elected representatives are going to be faithfully executed at the Supreme Court level, and that's very exciting.
Surely.
It's also exciting to just... Yeah, go on.
Well, I was just going to say, you know, the Democrats are, for the most part, sitting this out because they know it's a math problem. There are more Republicans, and they're going to do it. And the Democrats keep saying, look, this never happened with Merrick Garland. But at the same time, back then with Merrick Garland, they controlled the White House, but they didn't control the Senate. And the Senate holds the cards.
Yeah, and elections have consequences. I mean, one consequence is we have President Trump who's willing to put up such an outstanding and bold nominee. I don't think every Republican president would have been willing to nominate someone who is as clear and as firm in her beliefs as Amy Coney Barrett. But also, the election for the Senate has serious consequences. And in 2018, we saw the Democrats' hijinks with the Kavanaugh confirmation actually ended up with Republicans gaining more seats in the Senate. The American people don't want to see that kind of politicization of the Supreme Court, and now we're getting to see that that's exactly what they're getting. They're getting Senate who's willing to confirm these nominees who are very strong, very committed to the Constitution. And so the Democrats are left frustrated, I understand, but I think it reflects what the will of the American people is, having constitutionalist judges on the court.
Well, and this will all happen 8 days before the election. And so that's why the Democrats are, perhaps now this will motivate some Democrats to go out and vote. At the same time, it could motivate some Republicans as well. For me, the sad thing, and I mentioned this a moment ago, Carrie, is not one Democrat is expected to vote for her. I mean, with Kavanaugh, at least you had Joe Manchin. You had one. But what does it say? I mean, never in our recent history has there been such a political vote about something that should not be political.
Yeah, and you know, Manchin voted for her along with Senator Tim Kaine, the other senators, Democratic senator still in office here, voted for her at the appellate court level. Right. And we have even the liberal ABA says she's well qualified, top rating for this office, and they're not willing to vote for her. In a sane world, this is a nominee who should get unanimous votes, like Justice Scalia did, like Ginsburg nearly did, like O'Connor did. We're not living in a sane world, and that's really sad to see that even someone like Joe Manchin, who likes to try to pretend to be a moderate here, at this point is saying, no, I'm going with politics over principle.
Yeah. Of course, we'll see it all unfurl right here on the channel 13 hours from right now. Carrie, thank you very much for joining us live from the D.C. area.
Thanks.
You bet. All right. Meanwhile, Joe Biden slamming the allegations about his son, Hunter.
When you put the combination of Russia, Giuliani, the president together, it's just what it is. It's a smear campaign.
Smear campaign. Dan Bongino says the media are helping the Biden family cover up crimes, and Dan joins us live next.
Do you believe the recent leak of material allegedly from Hunter's computer is part of a Russian disinformation campaign?
From what I've read and know, the intelligence community warned the president that Giuliani was being fed disinformation from the Russians. And we also know that Putin is trying very hard to spread disinformation about Joe Biden. And so when you put the combination of Russia, Giuliani, the president together, it's just what it is. It's a smear campaign because he has nothing he wants to talk about. What is he running on? What is he running on?
Let's bring in Dan Bongino, Fox News contributor and author of the brand new book, Follow the Money, The Shocking Deep State Connections of the Anti-Trump Cabal. Good morning to you, Dan.
Good to be here. Good to see you.
Good to have you here. So I'm sure you watched that full interview last night. And John Ratcliffe has come out and said, I mean, he's the director of national intelligence, said this is not Russian disinformation. What do you say?
The interview was awful. It really was. And it's really getting harder and harder for me by the day to wrap my arms around how much the media outside of this network and some other conservative networks actually doing their homework has flushed their reputations down the toilet bowl. I can't believe history will look back on this moment and not look back in horror at what's going on. Think about this, Ainsley. You have a potential president of the United States. I hope not. I'm a Republican. I'm not a journalist here. I'm an opinion commentator. I hope Donald Trump wins. But you have a potential president, Joe Biden, who could be in the back pocket of one of the nuclear-powered enemies of the United States and China. This is not a joke. Listen, I was in the intelligence law enforcement surrounded by a field for over a decade of my life. So I'm not going to accept any lectures from journalists who are, 19 and 20 and, got out of journalism school 5 minutes ago. You don't know what you're talking about, so sit down. This is how this works. The Chinese are not stupid. What do you think they were doing in this potential deal with the Bidens for millions of dollars where the big guy, Joe Biden, that's confirmed, was supposed to get 10%? Serious question, not a joke for the audience. What the hell do you think they were buying? What do you think they were buying? Everybody said, let's get a moment of TV silence. Let's hit a 2 count. 1, 2. What were they buying? The answer is the Chinese were buying a blackmail file on the potential next president of the United States they knew would run, Joe Biden. Is everybody in the media this stupid? You didn't think, Norah O'Donnell, to ask Joe Biden the 2 most important questions right now. Are those emails real? And are you the big guy? Nobody thought to ask Joe Biden that? That was not an interview. It was a disgrace to journalism. I'm not kidding.
All he had to do was roll in at least Tony Bobulinski, the Penn State wrestler who went into the Marines for 4 years and was recruited by the Bidens to be their CEO of this fund, who came forward and then went to the FBI. Just say, did you meet with him? He is saying this. What do you say? If you have the answers, you love that question. If you don't, you want, is Russia behind this?
And Brian, the thing about Bobulinski is, as former law enforcement officer, you have 2 assets here that are just incredible. You have a background that makes him very credible in court, and you have a motive for him to speak out. By the way, I thought it was really bad to attack people who were in the military when it was Vindman. Right?
Yep.
Remember that on the left? Yep. You're not allowed to attack his credibility. Everything he says has to be treated like gold. Yet Lieutenant Bobulinski, who was in the military, it's open season on him. That's okay, because you're a leftist and you have no principles. But secondly, the motive for here to speak out here is absolutely perfect. He's apparently a guy who was in on these deals as an insider and feels like he was screwed over. That's not a bad thing. The left is pointing this out like, oh my gosh, he may have had a bad motive and may not like Hunter Biden. No. Once these emails with the Chinese government became public, for those of you not familiar with the story, in the Senate report, Bobulinski's like, wait, listen, that deal wasn't supposed to happen.
Right.
Now it looks like the Bidens backdoored Bobulinski too and took the deal. So he's like, all right, I was part of this. Now I'm going to speak out. But of course, the media, no interest whatsoever in entertaining this story, only because it makes Biden not look bad, but look horrendous.
Plus, I think, Dan, 60 Minutes taped that interview with Joe Biden on Monday or Tuesday. So the Bobulinski thing hadn't happened yet, but still there could have been some follow-up questions to Brian's earlier point about, okay, maybe it's disinformation, but at the same time, are those his pictures? Are these his emails? They're simple journalism.
Right, and Steve, you're a news guy. What do you do on the network? You say after you put in a little sounder or something, and you say, we reached out to the Biden campaign about Bobulinski, which came to light afterwards and got no response. Right. I mean, that's what you would do. That's what any fair journalist would do. Sure. And nobody did that.
They did not. Something else that happened yesterday in New York, as we have seen, and you're down in Florida, and they've got the big flotillas of Trump support. There was a convoy of, I think, 100 vehicles or something like that through New York. Eventually, some refer to this as Jews for Trump rally in New York. There were people getting beat up. There was a family pepper sprayed inside one of the vehicles in the caravan as well. What do you make of this kind of display where people are going after people who simply support a political candidate, in this case, the president?
Well, there's a couple of things that worry me here. First, more importantly, this growing virus of anti-Semitism on the radical left, Steve, is deeply disturbing. And I don't know why this isn't one of those issues that's setting off alarms everywhere. I mean, think about this. If this was a, Sikhs for Joe Biden or Muslims for Joe Biden event and people got attacked, rightfully so, people would be outraged. We'd be covering it on this network, like, what's going on here? But because they're Jewish, these stories, and by the way, Steve, this isn't the only one. Just put in a search engine, leftist anti-Semitism. There's videos everywhere, yet it doesn't seem to be a priority for anyone. Why is that? Why is that? And then secondly, yes, this growing strand of which is also important too. This is strand of violence on the left at Trump rallies, where again, it's okay to shoot people. It's happened that a Trump supporter was shot to death, beat people and attack people. Why isn't this a bipartisan moment? I mean, I'm a commentator on the conservative side. I have zero problem or reservation whatsoever saying to everyone out there, violence is never, ever the answer at these things. Why is that hard to say for the left? I don't understand. Why is that difficult? It's not difficult for us. Why is that difficult for you to call out these Antifa, BLM, and Black Bloc thugs who were there yesterday beating the snot out of people? I mean, it's just not right.
Yeah, Norah O'Donnell was never asked him, was it okay to put money aside to bail out the rioters? Was it okay to urge them to be bailed out for her followers, Kamala Harris? And a bunch of Biden staffers did exactly that.
Yeah, and then Leslie Stahl goes, full Mike Tyson on Donald Trump, comes out of the gate swinging, throwing uppercuts, and then Norah O'Donnell gives Joe Biden a bunch of bunt questions. Like, do you think it was Russian disinformation? There's no evidence of that, Norah. What do you think Joe Biden's going to say? No, I don't think it's Russian disinformation. Let me tell you the truth. I'm a Chinese asset. You have to ask him hard questions. You don't give him a bunt. Come on, guys, get it together in the media. Sheesh.
Norah did ask Kamala Harris about her voting record. Said, you're the most liberal senator. She said, yeah. Mike Pence said that one time on stage. She said, no, actually, the nonpartisan GovTrack called you the most liberal senator, and then asked her about some of her voting, a lot about her voting record. All right, Dan, we got to go. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Now to extreme weather. The Gulf Coast is bracing for Tropical Storm Zeta. It could hit Louisiana on Wednesday.
Yep, Zeta expected to strengthen to a hurricane before slamming into the Yucatan Peninsula.
Meteorologist Janice Dean joins us right now with the storms track. And JD, it just keeps going and going and going.
It's really incredible. This will be the 5th named storm to impact Louisiana if the center comes on shore across central and eastern Louisiana. Really incredible. We're on track to having the busiest season on record. There is the latest track as of 5 a.m. We get new coordinates at 8 a.m. And you can see we're expecting a landfall, we think, sometime Wednesday afternoon into Wednesday evening, possible as a minimal hurricane with heavy rainfall, the storm surge, the potential hurricane force winds along this vulnerable coastline that has been hit so many times. It's a terrible situation. On the backside of this, we are dealing with a snowstorm, an ice storm over parts of Texas and Oklahoma. This is a big deal because it's so early on in the season. Some of these areas getting more snow than the Northeast so far this year. And we're going to be potentially seeing an ice storm tomorrow for some of these areas with measurable ice on the roads and the power lines. And that's going to be a significant impact for this area. Look at that. I mean, that's incredible with over a foot of snow in the higher elevations, and the temperatures record cold as this front continues to sink southward. And this is going to be interacting with this storm Zeta, so we're going to have to watch all of the ingredients as they come together over the next couple of days. So a lot of weather to focus on. I appreciate you guys giving me some time, and I'll keep you up to date. Back to you.
The weather impacts everybody. Absolutely, JD. Thank you very much.
Well, the U.S. hitting 2 straight days of record COVID-19 cases. What does this mean for our fight against the virus? A doctor who has been treating COVID-19 patients for months is here to discuss it next. A grim new record in the coronavirus pandemic. The United States reporting a new high of more than 86,000 cases in a single day. So what do Americans need to know? Let's ask pulmonologist at NYU Langone, Dr. Kanta Ahmed. Good morning, Dr. Ahmed.
Good morning, Ainsley.
Good morning. Why are we seeing this increase? Is it because the weather's getting colder?
I mean, the virus is on the move. Remember, it's highly contagious. It's mostly contagious before we have symptoms. And people are moving, even though there's much less air travel. People are going to see each other. They're having social gatherings. And this is how this thing spreads. It's also very much that the climate is changing. And we are worried about the fact that people will be more and more indoors as the cold comes.
What about the vaccine? This is what Dr. Fauci said about it, and then we'll talk about it on the other side. Listen to this.
We will know whether a vaccine is safe and effective by the end of November, the beginning of December. The question is, once you have a safe and effective vaccine or more than one, how can you get it to the people who need it as quickly as possible?
How long are we talking after we do know it's safe and effective before it's distributed?
I think that actually the news on the vaccine front is very positive. It's almost certain that we're going to be vaccinating special populations before the end of 2020. That would be the military, enforcement, frontline workers. There have already been intensive plans made by Operation Warp Speed to get this vaccine across the country. Some of the formulations need to be stored at minus 94 Fahrenheit, freezing temperatures, for which huge production lines of specialized freezers in Kentucky and the Netherlands have already been on order. So there's already a military logistics operation to get it to people. I think one thing I do want to say immediately, Ainsley, is because we do have cold winters in the United States, I would appeal that the government looks into purifying indoor air. We have amazing technology with UV light, which can be put in a ceiling panel. Since 1978, we've known that that sterilizes the air. People can have them in their homes, hospitals, universities, offices, and they kill 99.9% virus, including against the COVID-19 virus. So this is what we're going to need as we start to roll out the vaccine, which is definitely coming. News today from Oxford about the AstraZeneca vaccine, with which the U.S. is actually studying, and we have subjects in that study, is that it's actually inducing immunity in the older adult, and that immunity is robust. So that's extremely positive. True safety isn't really going to be known when we have tens of millions of people vaccinated and walking around, and that's going to take time all over the world. But I do think we're going to have that. And frontline workers like police, like physicians, nurses, military are going to have to be followed after the vaccine to see not just how effective it is, but if there are any effects that are undesirable.
That's true.
But indoor air is something we can work on now. There are incredible American companies that make UVC devices. Fortune 500 companies are installing them and working with them. The NHL, Starbucks, other companies are looking into this. We want to make that available for the public and for schools and universities and hospitals, even before the vaccine comes.
It's incredible what we know now. I wanted to ask you really quickly about the holidays. People need to book flights. Is it safe to go see your family Thanksgiving and Christmas?
So, you know, this is something that my patients and I are struggling with. Even us as physicians are extremely tired. I haven't seen my family for almost a year now in England, and I don't know when. So air travel is actually relatively safe because the air exchanges are so frequent in an aeroplane, and they have HEPA filters. And if we wear a mask and passengers are spaced out, that's quite a safe way to travel. It's the airport hub, and it's then actually going from places in the country where there's more pandemic to places where there are less. 170 counties are reporting outbreaks, but we are a nation of almost 3,600 counties. So that's a decision. If you can, it's something important. Try and get tested before you see your family, and that could help you safeguard the gathering.
Thank you so much. Great to see you, Dr. Ahmed. We have Senator Tom Cotton at the top of the hour. A grim new record in the coronavirus pandemic. The United States reporting a new high of more than 86,000 cases in a single day. So what do Americans need to know? Let's ask pulmonologist at NYU Langone, Dr. Kanta Ahmed. Good morning, Dr. Ahmed.
Good morning, Ainsley.
Good morning. Why are we seeing this increase? Is it because the weather's getting colder?
I mean, the virus is on the move. Remember, it's highly contagious. It's mostly contagious before we have symptoms. And people are moving, even though there's much less air travel. People are going to see each other. They're having social gatherings. And this is how this thing spreads. It's also very much that the climate is changing. And we are worried about the fact that people will be more and more indoors as the cold comes.
What about the vaccine? This is what Dr. Fauci said about it. And then we'll talk about it on the other side. Listen to this.
We will know whether a vaccine is safe and effective by the end of November, the beginning of December. The question is, once you have a safe and effective vaccine or more than one, how can you get it to the people who need it as quickly as possible?
How long are we talking after we do know it's safe and effective before it's distributed?
I think that actually the news on the vaccine front is very positive. It's almost certain that we're going to be vaccinating special populations before the end of 2020. That would be the military, enforcement, frontline workers. There have already been intensive plans made by Operation Warp Speed to get this vaccine across the country. Some of the formulations need to be stored at minus 94 Fahrenheit, freezing temperatures, for which huge production lines of specialized freezers in Kentucky and the Netherlands have already been on order. So there's already a military logistics operation to get it to people. I think one thing I do want to say immediately, Ainsley, is because we do have cold winters in the United States, I would appeal that the government looks into purifying indoor air. We have amazing technology with UV light, which can be put in a ceiling panel. Since 1978, we've known that that sterilizes the air. People can have them in their homes, hospitals, universities, offices, and they kill 99.9% virus, including against the COVID-19 virus. So this is what we're going to need as we start to roll out the vaccine, which is definitely coming. News today from Oxford about the AstraZeneca vaccine, with which the US is actually studying, and we have subjects in that study, is that it's actually inducing immunity in the older adult, and that immunity is robust. So that's extremely positive. True safety isn't really going to be known when we have tens of millions of people vaccinated and walking around, and that's going to take time all over the world. But I do think we're going to have that. And frontline workers like police, like physicians, nurses, military are going to have to be followed after the vaccine to see not just how effective it is, but if there are any effects that are undesirable.
That's true.
But indoor air is something we can work on now. There are incredible American companies that make UVC devices. Fortune 500 companies are installing them and working with them. The NHL, Starbucks, other companies are looking into this. We want to make that available for the public and for schools and universities and hospitals, even before the vaccine comes.
It's incredible what we know now. I wanted to ask you really quickly about the holidays. People need to book flights. Is it safe to go see your family Thanksgiving and Christmas?
So, you know, this is something that my patients and I are struggling with. Even us as physicians are extremely tired. I haven't seen my family for almost a year now in England, and I don't know when. So air travel is actually relatively safe because the air exchanges are so frequent in an aeroplane, and they have HEPA filters. And if we wear a mask and passengers are spaced out, that's quite a safe way to travel. It's the airport hub, and it's then actually going from places in the country where there's more pandemic to places where there are less. 170 counties are reporting outbreaks, but we are a nation of almost 3,600 counties. So that's a decision. If you can, it's something important. Try and get tested before you see your family, and that could help you safeguard the gathering.
Thank you so much. Great to see you, Dr. Ahmed. We have Senator Tom Cotton at the top of the hour.